Good morning, good morning.
You are listening to the MixTape, your essential addition to the never-ending road trip that is parenthood.
Presented by The Parent Trip, produced and created by us, your hosts. I'm Sarah Fuller, your mermaid-haired lactation friend.
And I'm Olivia Spitzer, the loudest labor doula you've ever met.
And together we're here to talk all things growing and maintaining small humans.
Because parenting is a trip.
So buckle up, and here we go. Hello. Good morning.
Hi, friend.
How are you?
I'm good.
This is the question. I'm trying to train myself actually to stop putting that question to people all the time. And I feel like this is like a whole nother tangent. This is not our topic today, folks. But I feel like stopping asking how people are is something we learned through 2020 because life was just really hard always for everybody and still is in 2021. But outside of these pandemic times, you never know how someone's doing. You don't know what they're struggling with. And to say, how are you means A, they have to think about it, and B, decide how to answer.
Yeah. Whether or not they feel safe sharing that with you or whatever. Right.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out, I need a new opening question.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome everybody to the MixTape where Olivia and I go off on tangents and then get to our topic eventually.
Yep. The MixTape is a product of the Parent Trip, which is the overall arching thing that is informational panels, resource fairs, this vlog series, and just generally Sarah and I trying to get good information to parents about the stuff that can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Olivia and I have a lot of different experiences between the two of us. And so it's really fun. We both bring very different perspectives. And so to deep dive on some of these topics, I'm hopeful is really helpful for all y'all.
Yeah.
Please subscribe if you like listening to us. We post twice a month. You can follow us over on Facebook and Instagram, The Parent Trip PDX, if you want to know when our events are coming up. We also have a Patreon at the same tag, The Parent Trip PDX. The Parent Trip is a free resource for families, and we want to keep it that way. So the Patreon is one way that you can help support that mission.
Totally.
Okay, so our topic today is not, so normally Olivia and I have a big conversation about something, right? Books or myths or whatever. Today, however, I am going to interview Olivia. We're going to talk about Doula Olivia.
Doula care.
I love your sweater so much.
Wait. And I have my doula mug too. I don't know if you can read it if I turn around. Oh, it's hot. It says doula on it. I have so much doula stuff. So,
Shucks.
Anyway.
Yeah. I need more boob stuff in my life. This is one of my new purchases for myself. I love it. Send me all the boob gifts, folks.
Yeah. If you run an Etsy shop and you make, ceramic planters that are just like breasts and nipples, send that to us.
Actually, this is totally me putting out this into the universe. I want this. Urban Outfitters at one point sold magic 8 balls that were boobs. Yeah. And
everybody has one of those. Send us the eBay link. Send us
They don't sell it anymore.
Right.
I have scoured the internet, and one of my lactation colleagues has one, and every time she posts it, I'm like, I must have it. And I go search eBay again. Anyway, super off topic. I'm sorry. I need one. Anyway, let's talk about Olivia. Okay, so I feel like everyone kind of has a story when they get into birth work or working with folks that are pregnant or postpartum, something that brings them to this place where they really want to help that population specifically, rather than I want to work as an accountant to help all types of people, right?
Yeah.
So what brought you to doula work? What's your origin story, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say that the majority of doulas that you will find, the thing that brings them to birth work is their own birth experience. So I don't know the actual numbers, but I would say it's somewhere in the vicinity of it's at least 60-40, if not 70-30. Most doulas have their own kids. I am childless, so I'm in that smaller percentage. So most people's story goes along the lines of I had my own baby. I realized how much I didn't know. I saw the way that birth is transformative and I wanted to be a part of it. So the way that it went for me is that I've always been very baby in love and like pregnant bodies love. Like I'm the kid who like, I remember being 11 years old in a grocery store with my mom and having her be like, you have to stop staring at that pregnant woman. Like it's weird. She's going to think it's weird. And I was like, yeah, but she's so beautiful. My mom was like, I agree with you. Keep moving. Like we need to go buy some bread. So that's where I came from. And then, my first career as a young person was in theater. And so I did that for a long time in this city. I worked backstage, on productions. And at some point I realized that I wanted to do something different and I felt pretty lost. Like theater is what I'd done during college. It's the way that I became a part of the Portland community. It's where most of my friends were. And I didn't really know like what else was out there. There's this saying in theater that like, if you can do anything else, do. And so everyone I talked to was like, there is nothing else to do. Like, it's just the next show. So I was like, I have no idea what to do. So, I made a journal entry because I'm a journaler, and I made a list of things that made me happy. And my list was books, babies, and whiskey. It was a very honest list. So I looked into work in all of those things. Like I spent a year kind of talking to distillers in Portland. Like, what is it to like make a recipe that makes whiskey? There's a big distillery scene here in the city. I looked into like the publishing scene here. And then I went to Powell's to go get a copy of Spiritual Midwifery by Anna Mae Gaskin. And they didn't have it, which is like, I was at the little one on Hawthorne. I wasn't in the big one. And they were just out. And so instead I got this book, Peggy Vincent's book, Baby Catcher, which is a memoir of being a midwife kind of through the 50s to the 70s, told through a series of birth stories. And I freaked out, like read it in 2 days, devoured it, like talked to anybody around me about it. And I was like, okay, so like maybe I want to be a midwife. Like, well, that's crazy and like weird. Whoa. And so I looked up Birthing Way College of Midwifery, which was a midwifery college in Southeast in Portland, no longer exists in that capacity. And I scheduled a tour of their college. And I went on the tour, and Rabin, who most people in Portland watching this knows, Rabin led my tour, and she's a labor doula in town, has been working for a long time. And at the end of the tour, she said, if you want to be a part of our midwifery program, the prerequisite is that you have to take the labor doula workshop. And I was like, the what? And she was like, doula. And I was like, I don't know what that is. She was like, okay, well, look it up and think about it. So I ended up taking my doula workshop. And I loved it. I was like obsessed. I loved doing my homework. My husband, he was my boyfriend then, was making a lot of fun of me. Like, you're such a nerd. Cause I'd be like, I have to go do homework. Leave me alone. And I like would talk to everybody about it. So I would like go to the bar after a show. Cause I was still closing up my theater career at the time. So I'd like go to the bar after the show and be like, can I talk to you about uteruses? And they'd be like, no, definitely not. But at the end of the day, the whole time I was taking my workshop, I was like, there's no way I can do this because I'm so type A. I cannot imagine living on call. So like, because I know that I would be unhappy living on call because I know myself so well. I know that there's absolutely no way I can do this. So like, this is good information. I love it. I love that I'm taking this class. And like best case scenario, I'll use it sometimes. Like if a friend of mine wants me to like answer questions about a labor or something, you know? So this is a long story. I hope this is okay.
No, I love it. This is like, yeah.
So then fast forward, I finished my workshop. One of my friends, good friends, is pregnant. And she, during her pregnancy, the end of her pregnancy, she was like having a lot of anxiety. And so I was like hanging out with her a lot of the time, like trying to talk about stuff and all this. She had hired a doula in town who's been working for like 15 years, very well-respected doula. And then one day when she was like 38 weeks pregnant, I was over at her house, and before I left, she was like, so I talked to my husband about it, and we think right now that we're like okay with if you wanted to come for like an hour to my labor, like maybe an hour. And I could change my mind at any time. Like I could kick you out. And I was like, of course you can. Of course you can. You can kick me out whenever you want. That would be amazing. And he was like, yeah. I mean, we'll see. Maybe I won't call you at all. And I was like, yeah, maybe you won't call me at all. That's okay. That's fine. I could get in my car right now and you could text me and be like, that was a lie. And that would be okay with me. And she was like, oh, okay. So she already has a doula in place, and she calls me one night and she says, hey, I think I'm in early labor. It's like at 7:30. And I was like, oh my God, like freaking out. And she was like, I just want to be me and my husband right now. I'll let you know when I'm ready for you to come over. And so I look at my boyfriend at the time and I was like, what do I do? And he was like, you go to sleep. I don't know how he knew that, actually, by the way. I don't know. It was a stroke of, it was like the thought in his head. It was divine intervention. But he was
impressive.
Like, yeah, he was like, you should go to bed. And I was like, I can't go to bed. I feel insane right now. And he was like, you got to go to bed. So I go to sleep and I get a call like 2:30 in the morning. That's like, hey, we're going to the hospital. You should come. So I was like, okay. And so I wake him up and I was like, okay, I'm going to go. I'll be back before you wake up. I'm going for like a few hours to go hang out. He was like, okay, bye. So I get my stuff and I leave, and I get there and they're in triage, and like she's laboring and her husband's like in the corner and her doula's there. And I was like, wow, this triage room is way too small for me to be in it. So I said, can I go repark your car? Because they'd like pulled into the turnaround at the hospital, but just left the car there. And he was like, yeah, sure. Gave me the keys. And the doula was like, hey, I'll go with you. And I was like, okay. I'd never met her before. Did not know her at all. And so we get into the hallway and she goes, where did you do your training? And I was like, oh, I did it through Birthing Way, College of Midwifery. And she's like, great, cool. We're going to be fine. Here's the deal. I just came back from another birth. I haven't slept for 36 hours. And if you think that you're not going to help me, you are wrong. Like, I need you to help me. And I was like, so, 25 hours later, that baby was born. And I remember at one point during the morning, her mom came to the hospital, and I remember her going over to her mom, meeting her in the door of the hospital room, holding her hands and telling her that she loved her and she was so glad she was here and she needed her to go wait out in the lobby. And that was the moment when I was like, oh, I'm staying. Like, oh, I'm going to be here. So I did. I stayed until that baby was born. She was born at 3 a.m. the next morning. And it was just one of those things that I went home and I slept for like 2 hours, and then I went to work the next day, and I was like, it was like I was on a drug. Like everyone was like, what's going on with you? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with me. My body is full of ants. Like I can't breathe. I can't stop talking, but I also can't say anything. So that was a moment where I was like, well, I guess I have to figure out how to be on call. Like, that's weird. So yeah, that was how I got into it. And then I was like, now I have to do all this stuff. Now I have to like start a business and like get my certification and like all these things that I wasn't planning on doing.
So it seems like a great little segue to be like, how has being on call been for you? Have you made that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for sure. It's definitely one of those things. It's kind of like, I guess I would compare it to like, they talk about how you can like slowly raise the temperature on a room and people don't realize it's really hot in there until you leave. It's a little bit like that, where you like the first couple times you do it, it's just so exciting because you're like, oh my God, like there's a baby that can come at any time and I'm going to have to go. And there is that feeling like when we moved into this house 2 years ago, one of the first things that my husband did was he went and bought 6 little solar lights that light our walkway, because I get up in the middle of the night and leave the house so often in the dark that he was like, I want to make sure there's some light out there for you, like before we install a light or anything. So there's like, there's an element of excitement to that, right? To feeling like I could get called at any moment. I could go at any moment. There's also an element of anxiety Like I definitely, when I'm on call, I take my own body's reserves really seriously, knowing that they're going to be at the use of someone else. So what I mean by that is like, I don't drink. I make sure that I'm well slept. I like am really on top of my immunity stuff. Like even if I start to get a cold, I like kind of freak out because I need to be healthy and well, even before this pandemic, and available and like able to be strong physically and emotionally and awake and all these things for my clients. So it's the kind of thing where like, if you're on call for a long time, which is what happens when you're working professionally as a doula, is you get your clients lined up month to month to month, and you just kind of never, like maybe you get 2 days off call, but then you're right back on. So then when you hit that first break of being off call and you're like, wow, like I'm not panicking because my phone isn't nearby. Like this watch that I wear, I bought so that I could know if my phone was ringing or I got a text message with it in another room, because I was spending so much of my time keeping track of where my phone was, because I was like, it could happen at any moment. Like I need to be next to it all the time. And it's the kind of thing where like when I get treatments, like when I go in for acupuncture, I lay my phone next to the table and I'm like, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. I'm leaving the ringer on. I am on call. We will both know if it's my client as opposed to somebody else because it makes a terrifying noise. But I might need to get my phone while you have a whole bunch of needles in me. And they're like, okay. So
my brain is exploding a little bit right now, thinking about what it must have been like to be a midwife or doula pre-cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I imagine is obviously they probably invested in pagers when they were really expensive, and pre-pagers, I imagine that they gave their clients every phone number, the kind of thing of like, here's my house phone, here's my sister's phone, because sometimes I'm over there. Here's this, here's that. Or maybe they had like I have no idea. If you are watching and you were a midwife in the 70s or 80s, please like let us know how you did what you did.
Yeah. I mean, I think also we've grown into this culture where we expect immediate response from people.
That's true.
And so maybe it was just expected that on call meant like you'll get my message
hour.
in the next. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing that makes me think of is that there used to be a thing in theater before emails and that kind of thing were available, which was a rehearsal hotline. And so what would happen is if you were looking for your schedule for the next day for rehearsal, at a certain point, somebody would record it onto a voicemail. And it was your job to call in, listen to it, and write down what time you had to be at rehearsal the next day. And it was just like, so I'm wondering if there maybe was a system like that where you could like, maybe the midwife left a voicemail every day that was like, hey, today I'm going to the river with my kids. I'll be back at 2. This is the phone number of the, like, I don't know, the campground that I'm going to be at, whatever, right? Like, you know, that kind of.
Yeah. So
yeah.
if for technology.
You know, watching people, please tell us.
Yeah. Okay. So would you say that being on call is one of the more challenging pieces of being a doula for you?
I would say, like, if you're looking at short-term challenge versus long-term challenge, the on-call life is the long-term challenge for sure. That and the like instability of work, because there's no such thing as like getting a client that lasts you forever, right?
Right. Eventually they stop having babies.
You get a client who comes back to you 2 or 3 times, but there's no like, oh, now that I have 3 clients, I'm good for the next couple months. It's like, no, like you need new clients all the time to keep your business rolling. Same thing with lactation.
Yeah. Okay. So if on call is like you said the long term, what's the short term like hard thing?
I think that the short term, the like first hurdle to get over as a doula is the recognizing the fact that like part of your doula training is learning the physiological aspects of birth and learning how certain interventions can disrupt that physiological flow. And then when you get into actually serving clients, you have to have all of that kind of as a secondary skill set to your first skill set, which is accepting whatever your clients want as their birth plan, right? So not bringing in, if you personally think that using an epidural is going to slow down a labor and is not going to serve your client, but your client wants to use an epidural, you need to not bring that into their space, right? So I would say that's like the first challenge to a new doula is like learning all this stuff, getting excited about all this stuff, hearing all of these things, and then turning around and being able to very genuinely be like, yes, whatever you want, even if it's not what you learned about or what you would have chosen in your birth. That's the other thing. As a doula with no kids, I'm not bringing any baggage from my birthing experiences, good or bad, into my clients' spaces. And I know that for doulas who come into this work after having their own birth experiences, it can be really hard to let go of these things that were so transformative for you. This is how I did it. This is how I felt. This is how and to be able to just see the people in front of you as just them having their own experiences. And I can totally see that being hard.
Yeah, I know for me, like I had 3 at-home unmedicated births, 3 out of 3. Like I didn't have another experience. So that would be very different for me. And, you know, like I haven't done labor doula work, but I did show up and support my brother and his wife a little bit. And they did a hospital birth and they ended up with a C-section. And I was fully supportive of that, but it was definitely very interesting to like try to remove my own lens because I'm not practiced at it.
Yeah.
In that world.
So I would say that's the first like biggest like immediate challenge as opposed to a long-term challenge for doulas. And then the second thing is finding a way, and I'm not perfect at this. I don't know if there are doulas that are perfect at this, but finding a way to be genuinely, honestly present and supportive and holding space for someone, and then being able to let that go when you leave. Being able to not carry that birth home with you, because not every birth story is going to end up in a way that makes everyone feel great. And how do you, if you attend a traumatic birth for someone, how do you either accept that you also have been traumatized and do your work to not carry that to the next birth? Or how do you separate yourself in a way to prevent yourself from being traumatized?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting for a second in that like knowledge of all of that doulas carry with that. But I would love to then flip the switch and go to like, what's your favorite part of being a labor doula?
So my like narcissist side, not that I'm a narcissist, I don't think. Yeah. So to the question of like, what are the best moments for me? I would say there's 2 pieces, and one of them is like feeding my own ego, and the other one isn't. And the one that feeds my own ego is very often the moment that I arrive, whether it's at home or at a hospital, there is this feeling on my client and their partner's face of like, oh, thank God Olivia's here. And that feels real great. It feels really good. It doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. That feels like, yes. So I love that. And that's a very honest answer. The other thing I'll tell you is that I do not cry at most births that I go to. I would say almost all of them I don't cry. But I get tears in my eyes at every single birth that I go to. And it's always the same moment, and it looks really different. And it's not when the baby is born. What it is when we're getting close to, it's usually right before pushing. There's a phase of labor called transition, which is 8 to 10 centimeters. And it's usually the most intense piece of labor. Whether or not you have an epidural, you're going to feel the effects of transition. It's where you're starting to feel more pressure in your pelvis. It's where the shakes really come in. If you're going to puke, that's often when you puke. And this is all whether or not you have an epidural, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the emotional, the emotions are really, really high. So like at a birth, there are certain pheromones that the birthing person's body releases into the room in order to make it that everyone who's in that room, when the baby is born, the baby is able to like cut through all of your like, I'm a grown up and I don't get emotional bullshit, and like lay their hand on your heart and be like, take care of me, love me. I'm a tiny little human, love me. So the pheromones are really high. The hormones in the birthing person's body is really high. It's the most intense piece. And this is usually the moment where you see birthing people say, I can't do this. Like, I have to bail. I can't do this. I've even seen one person be like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm going to go. I don't want to be here anymore. And it's like, no, you will take it with you. Like, you can't leave it here.
No.
But it is that moment of the like, I'm done. This is too much. And it doesn't matter how long your labor's been. You know, if you're having a 4-hour labor, you hit that mark. If you're having a 30-hour labor, you hit that mark. Epidural is not. It's that overwhelm that's in your body. And that moment is typically when I tell my clients what I'm seeing on the outside, when I'm seeing how strong they're being, when I ask their partners to tell them what they're seeing, to tell them that they're proud of them, that kind of thing. That's always the moment that I want to cry. And I try really hard to like be chill and like keep it in. But it's one of those things where I'm always like, I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing out here. And I'll get like halfway through the sentence and my voice will break. And I'll be like, bring it back. Because it's amazing. It's amazing. And, you know, I took my workshop with someone who I became friends with, another doula, and we were pursuing certification together. And we were getting coffee one day. And I said, how do you feel after a birth? Because we were going to a few births at this point. And she said, I come home after every birth and I tell my boyfriend, we were both in dating relationships at the time. She said, and I tell my boyfriend, I am so not ready to have kids. Like, that is so not what I'm ready to do. And I was like, that is so funny. Because I come home from every birth and I get in bed with my boyfriend and I go, I want to have a baby. Like, I see this whole experience and I see everything that these birthing people go through. And then I see that moment at the end with their babies in their arms. And I'm like, I want that. That is the way I felt for 4 years. Every single time I go to a birth, I'm like, that.
Ugh, I love that. I love the squishy babies and that, like, I mean, I have only experienced it myself, like in the birth, not outside. It's on my list if anyone wants to call me.
If you're pregnant and you want Sarah to attend your birth, just write it in the comments.
I'll be there, and then I'll give you lactation support right after. It'll be perfect. But it's such a huge moment, and so like to have that be your job to witness that transformative, no matter how it happens, right? Because you went from not parents to parents.
Yeah.
And you went through a huge physical labor, like they call it labor for a reason, right? To get there. Like, what an amazing thing to get to witness.
So I will tell you that like 3 years ago, I watched the movie Poltergeist for the first time. Have you seen that movie?
I don't think so.
It's like an 80s, I think it's 80s, horror movie where there's a poltergeist in this house and a family is being haunted by a poltergeist. And the way that they have to get rid of it is that they bring a medium in and the poltergeist kidnaps their youngest daughter. So she gets taken into this other realm where she's being held hostage by the poltergeist. And the mom has to go get her and bring her back. Mm-hmm. And then they have to exorcise the poltergeist, right? So the way that they do it is the medium like sends this rope into the closet. Sorry for movie buffs who I'm doing this terribly. But this like rope goes into a closet and the dad holds one end of the rope and it's like held taut because on the other side is the like evil of the poltergeist. And she goes down the rope into this other realm. And then when she comes back, she has her daughter in her arms and they're like both covered in all this like weird poltergeist goo. And they like get put in the tub to get washed off. And there's a little bit of time of like where they're both like passed out and it's like, oh no, did they make it? And then they like both come back. And we were watching this together, me and my partner. And I was like, oh my God, this is a metaphor for birth. And he was like, what? And I was like, look, she has to go by herself into this unknown place to go get her daughter. And he's supporting her by staying in this realm and holding the rope. And he's giving her all of his attention and all of his love. And then they come back and they're like completely transformed. And we don't know if they made it okay, but then they did. And it's like the power of love that brings it back.
And they're totally covered in bodily fluids.
Exactly. 100%. And I was like, this is a perfect metaphor for birth. My husband was like, okay.
I love it. I know we could talk doula all day long. I would love it if you would kind of shout out why folks should hire a doula, whether it's Doula Olivia or any doula in town or wherever you live.
Yeah.
I would love to hear all your thoughts on all the things labor forever and ever, but we'll keep it here for now and go a little more broad.
Yeah. So here's my like big argument for doula care. And it's that whether you're having your first baby or your second baby or your fifth baby, whether you want an epidural or you want to do your birth at home, or whether you're having a planned cesarean, you are going down that rope into that closet. And you may have done this before, but every single time is different. Every single experience is different. And having somebody there with you who can, like the medium in Poltergeist, who knows something about that realm, who's able to rub your back as you walk that journey, who's able to tell your partner, all of this is normal, all of this is safe, and who's able to kind of dissect for you what's happening at every point, changes your entire experience. So when I worked at St. B's, I saw a lot of couples who were there without the aid of a doula, together in their room, their hospital room, specifically I'm talking about hospital birth. And I saw a lot of the experience of, I don't know what's happening. You don't know what's happening. I'm freaking out. You're freaking out. And just like going to the moon with the anxiety. And having somebody in there who is able to say, I know what's happening. This is okay. And just whatever piece it is, whether it's you're looking for somebody to cut it with humor, which is like my jam, whether you're looking for somebody, there are a lot of doulas who like will bring their knitting or their crossword and they'll just sit in the corner. And people get so much comfort from the fact that they're like, well, she's not freaking out, so it all must be fine. Right. So that's my like big thing is I have worked with people who are having their third baby, their fifth baby, and it's their first time using a doula. And they have said they cannot imagine how much it has changed their experience. Like you don't know until you're on the other side how much help it can and will be. And I think, I mean, we spend in this culture, we spend so much money on our wedding day. We're so aware of the fact this is a big day. This is a day I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. This is a day that's going to change me. Now I'm going to be, I wasn't married and now I am married.
Nobody has insurance to help cover any of that day.
Right. And your birthing day is just the same. You know, you go in one person, you come out another person. It's going to be something you remember for the rest of your life. So investing in someone to make that day better, to make that memory happier, to make you feel safer, I think it's a no-brainer.
Well, and also, isn't it true that it literally does make it safer? It literally does change your outcome to have a doula.
Yes, you are 30% less likely to have a cesarean birth if you have a doula in the room. And that is regardless of that doula's training level. That is regardless of it really is like my husband calls doulas when he describes it to other people, when he's like, oh, my wife's a doula. And people are like, what's that? He says it's a birth idea machine. And that is 100% the reason why it changes statistics is because my job is for when you say, I can't do this anymore, is for me to be like, great, let's not do this. Let's do that. Whatever it is, changing positions, getting in the tub, getting out of the tub, whatever that piece is, if I'm keeping things moving and flowing, you're going to cope better. You're going to move through it better. And you're going to come out the other side with better memories.
Yeah, because like in a hospital, the doctors and nurses don't have time to be there for you like that. That's just not how that system is designed.
Yeah. I would say you're in the hospital, your doctor or your midwife will check on you 2 to 4 times during your labor and then be with you for your delivery. And your nurse is probably in the room with you 30% of the time. So think about that other 70. What are you going to do?
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
This was fun. I'm glad you did it. I love talking. We know this.
I am still someday getting a shirt that says "Talk Doula to me." Someday.
Yeah.
And then I'll get accosted by random doulas anytime I wear it. They'll be like, yes, let's talk doula.
We love, I mean, I have a shirt that says let's doula this. And that's how I met Danielle McCary, who's one of our like ride or dies of the parent trip, is my personal chiropractor, is a good friend.
Yeah.
Is because she like literally grabbed me in a crowd and was like, "Are you a doula?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." So
I love it. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. If you have questions for Olivia, please throw them in the comments here or on Instagram or whatever, since Doula is one half of the Parent Trip team. Any questions that you get, she'll see them and we'll answer them. We'd love to dive more into Doula world, I'm sure. And we're here twice a month, and we hope that you'll subscribe so that you can hear more.
Last shout out, sorry, is this sweater that I'm wearing is, her name's the LA Doula, and she's adorable. She's based in LA. She makes really cute stuff. And then this mug that I have is from, I want to say the Bicycle Midwife is the name of her Etsy shop. If I'm wrong about it, we'll correct it right here. But
Perfect.
anyway, makes these mugs, makes these sweaters. Love the swag.
Love it. All right. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. If you love what we're up to,
We hope so.
and you want to hang out with us more,
We like you too.
wherever you're watching
Or listening.
you should be sure to subscribe so you'll get notified when we post something new.
Be the person in the know.
You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Parent Trip PDF.
Virtual connection is just so in these days.
And if you really like us,
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Olivia,
Okay.
you can support us through our Patreon. We do resource fairs, informational panels, and our conversation series all for free, so anyone can access it.
That is actually super important to us.
So by joining our Patreon, you make more content possible.
And make our hearts very glad. Thanks.
Thanks.